New evidence suggests America was populated way earlier. One of the reasons this idea feels so disruptive is because it forces a different question. Instead of asking when humans arrived, we have to ask how long they stayed unnoticed. The archaeological record is not a camera recording everything. It is more like a flashlight flickering in the dark. If people lived lightly, moved seasonally, used organic materials, or settled in places later erased by climate, their presence would leave almost nothing behind. Absence of evidence starts to look less like proof and more like expectation. Bluefish caves. In the far northwest of Canada, near the Yukon, caves preserved animal bones with cut marks that look deliberate. These marks suggest humans processed animals there tens of thousands of years ago. For years, this was brushed aside as natural damage, but newer microscopic analysis showed patterns consistent with stone tools. What makes this site important is location. It sits on the edge of Beringia, the land bridge region, suggesting people may have lived there long before moving deeper into the continent. That implies waiting, adapting, surviving harsh conditions, not rushing south in a single wave. Topper Site. In South Carolina, beneath well-known archaeological layers, researchers uncovered stone artifacts buried far deeper than expected. These tools did not match later traditions and were dated far earlier than mainstream models allowed. Critics questioned whether the stones were tools at all, but experimental replication showed how intentional shaping could produce the same forms. Even if debated, the site raised a critical issue. If people were present in eastern North America this early, the entire migration map collapses. You cannot explain this with a single corridor or a short timeline. Pedra Furada. In Brazil, rock shelters revealed charcoal, hearths, and stone tools that some dates pushed back extraordinarily far. The controversy here became intense, but not because the evidence was weak. It was because the implications were overwhelming. If humans were in South America this early, then either multiple migrations occurred or our understanding of early human movement is deeply incomplete. The site refuses to fit neatly into accepted models, and that discomfort has kept it in debate for decades. Megafauna survival patterns. Another quiet clue comes from animals. Large Ice Age mammals did not disappear everywhere at the same time. In some regions, they coexisted with humans for surprisingly long periods. That suggests early populations were small, spread out, and integrated into ecosystems rather than overwhelming them. A sudden late arrival would likely leave a sharper ecological signature. Instead, the record hints at long coexistence, slow adaptation, and gradual impact. Tool diversity problem. If humans arrived in a single wave with one technology, we would expect early tools to look similar across the continent. They do not. Stone technologies vary widely by region and time. Some appear suddenly without clear ancestors. Others fade out entirely. This diversity suggests experimentation over long periods, not a brief expansion. Cultures do not diversify that deeply without time to breathe. Oral histories and indigenous memory. Many indigenous cultures describe origins that do not involve migration from elsewhere. These stories were long dismissed as symbolic, but when viewed alongside archaeological uncertainty, they take on new meaning. Oral traditions can preserve memory far longer than written records. While not used as direct evidence, they challenge the assumption that movement into the Americas was recent or singular. At the very least, they remind us that people have always known their own history, even when outsiders doubted it. The preservation bias. The hardest truth for archaeology is that the oldest evidence is the easiest to lose. Rising seas, shifting rivers, volcanic activity, glaciers, and erosion erase traces relentlessly. Entire coastlines vanished, valleys flooded, camps dissolved. Expecting clean evidence from deep time is unrealistic. What survives is not what mattered most, but what got lucky. That means the oldest presence may never be fully visible, only inferred from fragments that refuse to disappear. Buttermilk Creek Complex. In Texas, beneath layers associated with well-known later cultures, archaeologists uncovered a deeper level filled with stone tools that did not belong to anything familiar. These artifacts were dated thousands of years earlier than expected and showed a level of refinement that suggested experience, not experimentation. This matters because it implies people were already skilled toolmakers when later traditions emerged. Cultures do not suddenly appear fully formed. They evolve, and evolution requires time. The deeper these layers go, the more it feels like we are looking at a long-forgotten chapter rather than a brief prelude. Chiquihuite Cave High. In the mountains of central Mexico, a remote cave revealed hundreds of stone artifacts buried beneath layers of sediment that built up over tens of thousands of years. The tools were simple but consistent, suggesting repeated human presence rather than a single visit. What made this site especially striking was its isolation. This was not an easy place to reach or survive in. If people were here this early, they were already deeply adapted to diverse environments. That challenges the idea of fragile early settlers struggling to survive. It points instead to resilience, planning, and knowledge passed down over generations. Ancient fire. Use patterns. Fire leaves subtle fingerprints. Burned sediment, altered minerals, repeated hearth locations. Across several early sites, researchers have found signs of controlled fire that predate accepted timelines. These are not random burns caused by nature. They show consistency and intention. Fire changes everything. It reshapes diet, landscape, and social structure. The presence of controlled fire this early suggests stable communities, not temporary survival camps. People were not just passing through. They were organizing their lives around shared spaces. Early rock art and symbolic behavior. In multiple regions across the Americas, faint rock markings and pigments have been dated to periods far earlier than expected. While dating art is difficult, contextual clues place some of these expressions deep into prehistory. Symbolic behavior signals something important. Humans create art when they feel connected to place, when memory, identity, and meaning matter. If these marks truly belong to early populations, then emotional and cultural roots in the Americas run far deeper than previously believed. This was not a land waiting to be named. It was already understood. Underwater archaeology discoveries. As sea levels rose after the Ice Age, vast stretches of land disappeared beneath the ocean, taking early human settlements with them. What is beginning to change now is our ability to look underwater. Along submerged coastlines, researchers are finding stone tools, ancient campsites, and altered landscapes that once sat above sea level. These locations make sense when you picture early humans living near food-rich shorelines, moving by water, and settling where resources were reliable. The silence in the archaeological record suddenly feels explained rather than mysterious. All of this leads to an uncomfortable realization. The story we learned was not wrong because people were careless. It was wrong because it was incomplete, built on what was visible, not what was possible. As new methods emerge, dating improves and assumptions loosen. The past is starting to feel older, deeper, and more human than we imagined. If this made you rethink what you were taught, hit like so this reaches more curious minds. Subscribe if you want long-form stories that do not shy away from uncertainty. Share this with someone who believes history is already solved. Because the earliest chapters of America are still being written, and we are only beginning to read them.